Kyle, Jason Wiltshire, we have yet another movie to discuss in the summer movie madness extravaganza celebration.
And I am so excited. I am beside myself. I'm like a puppy dog. My tail is just wagging. I am.
We're about to talk some Spielberg.
Yeah, the man.
Yeah,
the myth. I remember one time when we were talking about our book, and you were thinking about how do we sell this book? And you said you had a dream of walking in an elevator and there's Steven Spielberg, and you were like, here it is. And you laid out the 30-second pitch, the elevator pitch to Steven Spielberg. That's the dream right there. That's the dream.
That is the dream. He's the man. He's the man.
Him.
One of the things that he's always been fixated on since, most of our entire lives has been aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
And so, I don't think it's a secret that this film is alien heavy.
It's Disclosure Day, by the way. We haven't stated that clearly yet, but we are reviewing Disclosure Day tonight. Yes.
We are covering Disclosure Day. And with that, the question would be this, Kyle. What would you do if it was revealed for real that aliens were among us?
I've been thinking a lot about this, and I often do this when I have a thought or a question that I thought maybe we should talk about. I'll ask my kids. And so I asked my kids, I was like, what would you do if it turned out that aliens were real? And one of them said, well, it depends, because, if they're like, I come in peace, then it'd be like, sweet, let's party, aliens. But if they come like, War of the World style, or, whatever, like, we take me to your leader, we come for destruction. It's time to find a bunker. that's what he said. And so I was like, yeah. But I think how I would respond, I think I would just be real practical about it. I'd be like, it makes sense. It's a big universe. The fact that there's some other life out there somewhere, it seems logical at the very least. What about you? How would you react?
I think some of it would have to do with the amount of information we had about the situation. Like the less you know about something like that, the more your imagination can get a hold of you, your anxiety can get a hold of you. But if it was revealed that the government had known about it for decades and had been in dialogue, yada, 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 like I think it'd have been like, okay, well, I guess this is a thing. If it was, Project Hail Mary type aliens where it was like algae or whatever.
Right. Pile of rocks, big pile of rocks.
No, well, no, like,
the astrophage.
The astrophage is basically an alien life form. And so like, it could be something like that. I think there's a more openness to it today than there probably ever has been, and a less fear about some of that. The other end of it is we've seen so many movies that, like, Spielberg, among others, is not only directed but produced and made that, like, I think we've seen all the different variants of it. We've had Falling Skies and we've had everything in between. So
yeah. I think, thinking about those classic alien films, it is. It's like Spielberg's version is always, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., whatever it might be. It's always like, aliens are going to be nice, They just want to come hang out.
We got War of the Worlds in there.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. That is the outlier in his, in his Alien Manifesto films. But then you got, Independence Day, where it's like, we're here to blow up the White House. We do not come in peace.
I'm pretty sure that Spielberg was the producer on Falling Skies with your boy.
He was. Yeah,
Noah
that's
Wyle.
a deep cut. That's a deep cut. But we love Noah Wyle. We love Dr. Rabinovich / Carter. That's a deep cut. If you don't remember the 2011 Falling Skies series, we watched that. I think I got 2 or 3 seasons into it. I didn't get beyond that. I didn't make it to the end.
Yeah.
But he was. I saw it on the IMDb, saw it on the list. He was.
Well, Steven Spielberg has been extremely influential to our upbringing, our creativity, our right brain side that entertains us and wows us and scares us and amazes us and everything in between. And so, we've done a little bit of digging on his IMDb and different things, just to kind of reflect upon it. And one of the things that you asked me earlier today was like, should we talk about our top Spielberg films?
Yeah. And the greatest Spielberg films, that's debatable. You'd say Schindler's List or something like that, Private Ryan, some of those classic Oscar winning types. But I'm thinking about if you're wanting to hit the remote and watch a Spielberg movie, on Netflix, or if you're physical media, you're putting in a DVD, whatever, what's your go-to? Like, what are your favorite Spielberg films? That's kind of what I was thinking about. So
Yeah.
where are you at? Let's do top 5. How about a top 5?
All right. How about I'll say my number 5, you say your number 5. Are we going in order?
Yeah, we'll go from 5 down, and we'll bounce back and forth.
I spent a lot of time thinking about whether or not I wanted to include any of his serious work, but we didn't really give that stipulation of like, we're going to ignore the fiction, or we're going to ignore nonfiction. We're going to ignore kind of stuff like that. But so
do whatever you want, man.
So for me, my number 5 all-time favorite Spielberg film, these aren't necessarily the best ones, but they're my favorites.
Right.
Number 5 is Minority Report.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a incredibly clever premise. It was kind of predictive AI kind of conversation before it was a thing.
Right.
It was Chris Pratt's Mercy movie before that came out.
Yes.
And it was just a pretty amazing kind of turn. Tom Cruise was great in it, and Spielberg was Spielberging, and it was wonderful. I loved it. It was very rewatchable for me.
I need to revisit it. I haven't seen it in a long time. I need to revisit it though. Because I remember liking it, but it was weird because it was if I remember correctly, it was one of Steven Spielberg's first kind of gritty movies. Even though it was slick and futuristic, there was a lot of grit and grime, and it was kind of gory. I remember Tom Cruise had his eyes plucked out, and he had to get new eyes, surgically, so he could get through scanners or something. I don't remember all the details, but it was a little bit like, ew, Steven, you don't usually go for the gross out.
Steven.
Steven.
Ooh, Steven.
I think for me, number 5 would be Catch Me If You Can. I think that might be my favorite Leonardo DiCaprio performance.
Wow.
I love that movie. I mean, seriously, if I'm flipping through the channels, which I still have old school satellite television, and I see Catch Me If You Can is on, I'm done. I'm going to keep watching. So I keep going just because it's cool, because it's episodes, oh, well, he's faking like he's a pilot. Oh, here he's a doctor. Oh, here he's a lawyer, all the different things. It is just kind of fun to pick it up wherever you find it and be like, oh yeah. Oh, I forgot Jennifer Garner was in this movie for 3 seconds. I mean, there's all kind of fun little things in that movie. So I love it. That's one of my favorites.
All right. What's your number 4?
From here on, I kind of go the classic, but I mean you love what you love, right? So for me, number 4 is Jaws. That was a really important movie to me as a kid, because it had that stigma of oh, it's scary. That was a scary movie, and I remember recording it with a VHS when it came on television, the UHF channel too, not like NBC, CBS or whatever. It was like the UHF. And I just watched it on repeat. I loved it. And I recently, within the last 5 years, have watched it with one of my sons, and it holds up, man. It really does.
I don't remember much about it. I mean, I don't remember if I've even seen the whole thing, to be honest with you. And I know that's a little bit of a shock, but it's right there on the early cusp of being too young to really care about it. And then once you're old enough to care, it's kind of things have moved on to cooler, shinier.
Right.
Because special effects are not amazing.
Well, yeah, there's not any special effects. I mean, the shark was a
practical
robot.
Yeah.
It's very practical. That's what makes it great. And then the fact that the shark wouldn't work is what makes the film so memorable, because they couldn't show it. There was no shark to show, so they had to craft their way around that, and it turned out to be brilliant. So
made it scarier.
It's great. Yeah.
My number 4 is Saving Private Ryan. I can't. He has some very important films, but I feel like that was one of the more significant ones for our time to kind of appreciate what the World War II veterans went through.
Yeah.
And to be able to see it. And that kind of put Spielberg and Tom Hanks kind of on a path of honoring that World War II. Those veterans, which are very few of them are still alive today. They're all 105, 106 years old at this point.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. That's wild.
And so that movie was important. It was one of the first movies I remember watching and thinking to myself, that's really probably how it was, and that's
Mm.
terrifying in some ways. And so for me, that's one of those you go back and watch again, no matter how bad it is. It's powerful moments, and even the way it ends and what's said is one of those classic Hollywood kind of moments that make it into the ether, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Earn this. Yeah. This is true confession here. I have not watched the Normandy Beach sequence of Saving Private Ryan since I saw it in the theater. I can't do it. It's too rough. The guy looking for his arm and the kid holding his intestines. You know, I mean, I'm just like, oh my word, I can't do it. I cannot do it. But I've watched, after they land to the end multiple times.
Yeah.
Multiple times. That was rough.
My number 3 is the glass of water shaking. Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
I thought that was a revelation.
Yeah.
That was the first time CGI felt real in a theater. And that was a game changer. And not only that, but it was just a really, really wonderfully done movie. You know, I don't know if it honored perfectly Crichton's vision of the book, but pretty wonderful start to a franchise, and, a fascination of dinosaurs in the same way. In the way Spielberg treats aliens, there were dinosaurs that were cute and lovable and wonderful, and then there were the ones that were terrifying, and then there was a whole different type of dinosaur that didn't really exist before that movie. The Velociraptor was not a thing, and so those little child actors were great. Goldblum was great. It was just that's up there for me. That's a rewatchable for sure, and something that I love. A very huge generational kind of genre shaping film.
Yeah, that's number 2 for me. I'll go ahead and spoil. That's Jurassic Park.
What's your number 3?
Number 2. Let me talk about Jurassic Park for just a quick second before I go to number 3.
So we'll hit your number 2. Okay.
So yeah, we won't have to go to number 2 since this is my number 2 as well. This was probably top 5 ever theater going moments in my life when I saw that movie in the theater, 1993. It was, the old school theaters before we had recliners, which, don't get me wrong, I love the recliners, but when there were probably 300 or 400 people slammed into that theater. It was the biggest screen that theater had. It was probably opening weekend or the next weekend. It was very soon in the run. Yeah. And it was a communal experience watching that movie together. And so much so in my mind, like I hyped it up before I showed my kids. I was like, this is one of the most intense, best movies I've ever seen, just edge of your seat. And they watched it and they were like, it wasn't that scary, Dad. It wasn't that intense. I was like, oh man, well, it was when I saw it for the first time. So yeah, I love Jurassic Park. It's my number 2 for sure.
What's your number 3?
Number 3 is E.T. I distinctly remember seeing E.T. in the theater when I was a little boy. I think it came out in 82. So that would have put me at 4 years old. But I remember going. I remember standing in line. I remember watching it. And I remember somewhat being disappointed because I was expecting something like Star Wars, when you find out it's about aliens and, their spacecraft and all these things. And so that's what my little brain, I remember distinctly remembering I was hoping for something like Star Wars, and it was nothing like Star Wars. So E.T. has meant more to me as an adult than it did as a child. Going back and watching it as an adult, it is incredible, because you see it through a totally different lens. But even still, man, when those kids take off on their bicycles and fly in front of the moon, it's still like, that's why you go to the movies. I mean, like that's what makes you love movies. So E.T. number 3 for me.
Okay. Well, my number 2 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I thought, you could almost pick any of the Indiana Joneses, right? And some of it depends on what's your cup of tea there. But for me, that film was the most well put together of all those stories. It was the most interesting. Sean Connery was great.
Yeah.
The idea of what they were chasing and the religious implications about it and the way they kind of treated all that. It was just like peak director at the height of his power. Harrison Ford being right there on the tip of him being Harrison Ford. And for me, that's probably the one that I've watched the most on repeat out of all of them. And so that's my number 2.
That would have probably been number 6 on my list. I love that movie. I remember seeing that one in the theater as well. Great theater going experience. I love the intro with River Phoenix as Indiana Jones.
Young Indiana Jones. Yeah.
And, I mean, he was just a few years older than us. So as being able to relate finally to Indiana Jones, and I love the dynamic with his dad. That's so good. Um, that's so good. I love that one as well.
So as we get to number one, I'll go and then I'll let you
Yeah.
share your number one.
Okay.
My number one is E.T.
Oh,
I was
nice.
a year older than you. It was the first time in a movie theater experience that I collectively like I lost my mind in like sadness, like
Oh,
just heartbroken, like
yeah.
when E.T. died.
Yeah.
And then when he came back to life, I lost it again. It was not anything that my little brain could have comprehended
Yeah.
at that point. And, it was just a beautiful movie experience for me at that age. And like there was just enough scary that you felt like you were watching something, much like a Thriller or something like
Yeah.
that. Like we talked about, it's kind of dangerous, but not dangerous, like dangerous, but you're in good hands.
Right.
At no point were you saying, "Oh, Steven," like you were not doing that for this.
No.
E.T. was a perfect little kids movie in a lot of ways. And, that captures the rebellion so well in the 80s of kids and their bikes and where they could go that we flash forward 40 years and 50 years and there they are again doing it in Stranger Things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
It captured a beautiful moment in time and launched the career of Drew Barrymore. And,
Right.
that E.T. was omnipresent right there with Michael Jackson and Hulk Hogan,
Yeah. Oh man, and the reason why Reese's peanut butter cups are on the map is because they outbid M&M's for the for the spot when he's eating candy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot to thank ET for.
If not the beginning or the best product placement at its finest, right there for sure.
It was.
All right.
Well, number one for me. You want to drum roll it up? It is Raiders of the Lost Ark. That is my absolute favorite action film.
Okay.
I mean, Star Wars is action stuff, but but those are like in a category, the original trilogy are in a category of themselves. But like someone asked me, what's your favorite action movie?
Yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
I have probably seen it 30 times, maybe 40. I mean, it's one that I have watched over and over and over again. When I was a little kid, and he's got the two guys in the lecture room, and he's talking about the Ark of the Covenant. The guys are looking at him dumb. He's like, "Didn't you go to Sunday school?" It's like, "Yeah, I've been to Sunday school." I love that scene. Just the whole thing. It's fantastic. It's my favorite Steven Spielberg by far.
That's great. I can appreciate that. I would say that. I don't know where that falls in my top list, but Indiana Jones, Star Wars, which he was a part of, the very first one, and right, and him and Lucas kind of worked together on that.
I think Spielberg helped him, with story beats and some edits and stuff, but he had no credit. He had no
but
absolute.
That's that beginning with Lucas and Spielberg and everything they kind of touched there at the beginning, and that just super formational for us.
And it dovetailed right into Indiana Jones. Yeah. So, all that stuff, that partnership of those three guys, and holy trinity of nerd.
we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to bring this up because I don't think it's just as much what he directed or what he wrote. I think he's got credit for 27 writing credits. I think he's got 60 something films he's made, but he's got hundreds of things that he's produced.
Yeah. Prolific.
If you go back and look through his production list, I mean, have you looked at this? Have you touched some of the, I'll just fly through a few that I thought were interesting.
Yeah.
The Twilight Zone movie, Gremlins, Goonies, Back to the Future. There's some 80s movies in here that aren't like Money Pit's not anything.
Right.
Harry and the Hendersons, Inner Space, right? But then, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Joe versus the Volcano is in there. Arachnophobia. And you go through here and you realize pretty much anything that was sci-fi or a little bit scary or a little bit like pushing the envelope of an interesting story. Like he was touching it.
Yeah. Poltergeist. That one was scary.
Poltergeist
in 82. Yeah. The 84 to 85 run of Gremlins, Goonies, Back to the Future. I mean, it's like, you you just created the 80s, like those are probably like the 3 most formative movies for children in the 80s in a lot of ways, outside of Star Wars
listen
and
to
stuff.
this run here. Let me see. 96. We'll see. I'll go back to 96. Twister, Men in Black, Amistad, Deep Impact, The Mask of Zorro, Saving Private Ryan. That's in a 1 or 2 year period. Not
Like
to
2
mention
years.
Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and everything else he's doing right there at that moment.
Well, so like all the franchises he started, like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
He produced Men in Black, but several of those that like he had a production credit went on to be like huge franchises. Men in Black. I think he had his hand in the Transformers.
Transformers, Cowboys and Alien, anything that's kind of like, I bet he probably got the options for everything in town,
Right.
and so
yeah, he probably for 25 years was the first phone call for anything that came across. Maybe more, maybe still today, he's the first phone call of like a script. Like, Steven, do you want a piece of this? Yeah, I want to direct that. Oh, no, I'll just produce that. Like he probably gets the right of first refusal for just about anything he wants at this phrase. He's such a legend.
Yeah. And he's done, I mean, Gremlins is one of those movies that like, it may not be considered like a classic or anything like that. Maybe it is a classic. I don't know. But like for me, it was one of those times where it was okay to be scared in the theater because again, you felt like you were in safe hands, even though it was silly, Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one was hugely formative in the childhood. Like I said, the trilogy of Gremlins, Goonies, Back to the Future. It's like, boom, those 3 in a row from 84 to 85. It's like, not only does the guy, direct the coolest and best movies, he also puts out into the world the coolest and best movies from that decade and beyond.
Yeah. And the directors that he's influenced that have shaped us moving forward. I mean, you can't, J.J. Abrams is hugely influenced by that guy. Everybody is. And so that is, there's a lot to be said for that. And in 2026, for him to be putting out a film that is relevant and is interesting and is as big ticket item as they come, like that's a big deal. I mean, you think about it, Scorsese's still putting out films, but they're on Netflix or they're wherever, and they're not really typically June, July tent poles for the culture. And Spielberg's still doing it at 80. It's wild.
It is. And to be able to, I don't want to get too deep into, what we're going to talk about, but to be able to make a movie like Disclosure Day at this phase in his career is just, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right into it. Do you mind giving like a little bit of a spoiler-free plot summary of Disclosure Day, so we can kind of we'll dip our toes in it. We'll give the plot summary, and then we'll hit some 30-second reviews, and then we'll dive right into Spoiler Town.
So I went and looked it up. Like the actual log line for this film is this. This is the log line.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you found out we weren't alone, if someone showed you, proved it to you, would that frighten you? That's kind of what inspired that first question. If you found out you weren't alone, if someone showed it to you, proved it to you, would that frighten you? So that's pretty cool when you think about that as a log line. But here's just a real vague but basic plot summary. Is this. Dr. Daniel Kellner is on the run from a shadowy government agency with stolen files. Meanwhile, there's a TV weatherwoman by the name of Margaret Fairchild. She's experiencing things that she can't explain. How are they connected, and what does it all mean? That's Disclosure Day.
Okay, and don't forget the weather shimmy or whatever it was.
The weather shimmy. Her favorite type of weather, hail. Okay, I don't know anyone whose favorite type of weather is hail.
Yeah.
Quite funny.
I can't wait. We have talked very little about this. You started it today.
I did. I started it.
We kind of started to dig into it a little bit, but the reality is we really haven't talked about it. We watched it separately, different movie experiences.
Yeah, had to do that. Couldn't see it together, which has not been our norm lately.
No, I have not prepared my 30-second review this time, so I'll need a. I could probably pull something out of the rabbit's hat.
Oh, I'm ready to go. If you want me to go for it, I'll go for it. I gotta get my timer up though.
All right, I'm pulling my timer up as well.
Okay. I am prepared. I got back on the track of being prepared. I really wanted to nail this one. Wanted to nail it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm ready if you are. I've got the countdown.
All right.
All right. This is the 30-second review of Disclosure Day from Kyle Wiltshire. You ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1.
Listen, films like Disclosure Day are why we go to the movies. It's slammed full of incredible filmmaking. It's a spellbinding story. And at least to me, it's preachy in all the right ways. It is clear to me that Steven Spielberg still has his fastball. Emily Blunt and Eve Hewson give career best performances. So count me a believer that Hollywood is still capable of making great movies that leave you speechless. 5, Jay, count them. 5 lightning bolts. Boom.
5. We have a 5. Is this the first 5 ever for you?
This is my first 5. This is my first 5. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
5. Cinco. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear your thoughts. You've told me a little bit, but I want to hear. I want to hear from the gut, man, straight from the hip, the Jay Watson opinion. 30-second review on Disclosure Day.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Disclosure Day review. Jay Watson. 30 seconds. In 3, 2, 1.
Disclosure Day was a wonderful movie-going experience. I was delighted. I was surprised. I was moved emotionally. I thought that the performances were excellent. I thought that it had hit all the right notes. It asked the right questions. I very, very much liked it. I thought there were some moments in the film that were hard to excuse, but as far as the overall enjoyability of this movie, I loved it. I give it 4 out of 5 lightning bolts.
Okay. 4. All right. All right. When you give something 5
wasn't
lightning
perfect
bolts,
for me.
It wasn't perfect for me either. But very few films are perfect if you think about it.
Sure.
Back to the Future, Top Gun Maverick. That's really about it. Maybe Star Wars Episode 4. Every other movie I can nitpick to some degree. But those are the ones that are there's no flaws here for me at least. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's a perfect film. The combination of the movie going experience, knowing very little about this movie and it meeting my expectations, hitting me, in the sweet spot of being blown away. Jay, when the film was over, I just had to sit there. I couldn't get up. I watched probably most of the credits, just, letting it wash over me. It has been a long time since I have just had to sit there and let it, and just take it in. It's been a long time. So no, it wasn't perfect. And we're going to be able to nitpick it to death probably. But as our dearly beloved Professor Calvin Miller, used to do, when he liked your work, that's when you got the most red ink. So because I love it so much, I'm going to give it some red ink here later on in our pod together, our time together. I wanted to go again. I really wanted to go see it a second time, take my sons, before we were able to talk, but still it was great. It was great.
I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
I think that it was there's so many great things to say about it. So I don't really know that it's even worth starting with picking it apart, but I do think we can head very quickly into spoiler town and start to talk about this film.
Let's go to spoiler town. We're half an hour in.
Here's your official warning. Spoiler. Warning.
Spoiler
warning.
Town. We're going to spoiler town.
Beep boop, beep boop. Okay. What did I like about it? I think it asked a lot of the right questions. I think it asked questions about faith and God and creation and the universe and governments and big business and, the hand in all of that. I think if we're getting into themes, I think there's one particular theme that I think is really important that I think we'll discuss a little bit later. But man, I thought the big questions that were asked were wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I've listened to some podcasts about it after I saw it, and a lot of people are like, he's not trying to say anything other than, other than aliens are real, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think
No.
there is more to it. I think he's
Yes.
saying something beyond the fact that that he may believe that aliens are real, that we have had
Yeah.
extraterrestrial life on our planet.
Yeah.
I loved, I've been critical of this from some of the movies that we've reviewed in the last 2 years that we've done this podcast together. But I love that it just started. Like you're at a wrestling match and then boom, it's beginning. I will nitpick that people who put wrestling in movies rarely have actually been to an actual wrestling match.
Yeah.
That's not how wrestling matches actually are.
No,
not everybody cheering every single punch, every single drop kick.
We'll even forget about that. It looked like it was in like a video game setting. Like the crowd around it was like, I don't know. It was like a.
It was an indie wrestling promotion for sure.
Well, not even indie. It was like blood sport or something, like an 80s thing where they're going to fight to the death and there's like brick walls behind it. Like you're at the match right now. And like, it wasn't even at a stadium or anything. Right. It was just, all that was very odd to me. And then, where you roll right back out of it and they're outside and they are somewhere that looks like they were in a stadium. And you're just like, okay, what is this?
Yeah. Well, let's stay on the positive though. Let's stay on the positive.
Okay. And not that's that, but fault. Like if a guy's in a stadium not cheering, wearing a backpack, everybody's scared.
That's true.
Everybody's scared. Okay, sorry. Yeah, we're getting into what we didn't like about it. Yeah. I loved the actors. I thought that Wyatt Russell was terrific. I thought that the side parts were terrific. I thought that Emily Blunt was not a revelation. She was exactly how you expect her to be. She was great and delightful, and you could believe her as a weather woman, and then you believed her as this vessel for whatever she was. And I thought she was terrific. I thought that Eve Hewson may have stole the show a little bit.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
You started nodding. I was like getting nervous, but like
no. Sometimes when you really agree with something, you go sideways, not up and down. I'm like, oh, you are so right. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But totally agree. Listen.
Anytime I'm at church and somebody's singing and they start nodding their head while they're singing, I'm like, you don't believe that. Well, you don't believe what you just sang. How great is our God? I'm like, come on now.
I'm not sure they believe it now.
Come on. And they start raising their hands. It's kind of like they're shrugging a little bit,
I am a homer for the Houston family, but I thought she was a revelation. I mean, I've not seen a lot of the things she's in. I've seen a few things over the years, but not like, season tickets for Eve Hewson. But I was blown away by her performance.
Yes. I don't know how an eye color change makes someone look that drastically different.
Yeah.
I don't know what she did or how she did it.
Yeah.
The control with her body movements and her face in that moment where she froze and stuff like that. Like, that was just, it was great. She was great.
Yeah.
I thought that could have been a part that was like a throwaway. You're like, Nepo baby, but it wasn't. It was really, really good and important to the story, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I thought it was very interesting considering who her father is, that she was the vessel, she was the avatar for the faith questions, in a lot of ways. Being that Bono was so outspoken about his faith, it's just kind of interesting about, she was the one that we saw the lens of, their aliens are real. Okay. I don't think that's a spoiler. I know we've already said to give our spoiler warning, but like the commercials made it pretty clear that in this film, they're revealing the reality that aliens have visited our planet is real. So, thinking it through the lens of like, what does that mean for my faith? What I believe about God, does it change anything? I thought that was really an interesting approach. And it's interesting that Spielberg is the one who's, asking these questions, in such a curious way. Is a place where, we can get into this now, we can save it for later, but is a place where Christians can come off looking, really bad. I felt the portrayal of the nuns, the Christians in the film was very, appreciated. They didn't come off as the, as the anti everything,
Yeah.
I thought that was powerful.
I haven't gone into the, religious messaging is down our list as far as what we're going to talk about tonight, but I haven't done a deep dive into what they said and checked into it or anything like that, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Sure.
But the messages were good. I thought that Colin Firth is probably someone that's we probably didn't notice his role as much in this film
Yeah.
because it wasn't super flashy, but like
Right.
I think he kind of had some gravity to his kind of role. Like he played it very real and true, and I thought that was great. Like it was believable to me. And so
Yeah.
like
As
I
the
don't know Josh O'Connor. I don't know what else he's done. Do you?
No, I was not familiar with him. I had to look up his IMDb, and there's, I think he was in the Crown. I believe he played Prince Charles in The Crown. And
Challengers.
yeah, Challengers. I never saw that. So I'm very unfamiliar with him. I was not blown away by his performance, but I thought for the role, the material he had, it was not a
Yeah.
detractor. I was not
No.
pulled away from the
I
film.
mean,
because
if
of him.
anything, it was interesting because, you know, and you don't really like this very much, but trailers, when they don't give you much, there's a fine line in a movie trailer. Like there are some
Yeah.
trailers where you feel like if they're so obtuse that you don't know what's happened in the film, like that bothers you. Like
Yeah.
you've talked about that before. I don't know that was the case with this film, but we certainly didn't know much.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of assumed it was Emily Blunt's film, and like the first half of the film is really not.
Yeah. It's 2 acts. Well, it's 3 acts, the first act being, the Josh O'Connor role, Daniel Kellner, and his girlfriend, Jane, that's Eve Hewson's role, them trying to, steal the files, get to safety, connect with Coleman Domingo's character. I don't remember his name. Hugo, his name is Hugo in the film. He's sort of this man in the chair, the Ned role in Spider-Man. He's the man in the chair, telling people where to go and connecting people together. You don't really know exactly why he knows what he knows or how he knows what he knows, but he's, they'll take you to the safe house. He'll pick you up. Somebody will get you, all those things. He was that role. And then Colin Firth, like you said, he was the main antagonist, the bad guy, if you will. And there wasn't a whole lot to his role either, apart from, menace and his ability to go into this, to use this alien technology to get into other people's bodies, drop in, as they called it, which led to, I think, one of the greatest sequences in the film when he drops in on Eve Hewson in the back of the car. And, it turns into a Hitchcock movie all of a sudden. I mean, it was, gosh, it was so good. Blew me away.
I think if we're talking about things that you can like and dislike, I don't think they explained much.
Yes, I don't. And, usually I would nitpick that, but there wasn't a lot of how and why. There wasn't a lot of.
It can kind of work for you and against you. And so like it's an in-betweener for me. That's why I brought it up in the why do you like about it portion.
It worked for me. Let me just say, it worked for me that they didn't try to explain the magic wands, the technology that he was carrying around. There were 3 of them throughout the film. They didn't explain how the aliens were able to give them these powers. Why, slightly that they came as animals, because that sort of made people comfortable if they'd show up as a deer or a cardinal or a fox or whatever, those different things. They didn't really get into a lot of the whys, and I was okay with it. Because
for the most part,
it was so well done for me. I was okay with it because it was so
for the
well
most
done.
part. I was too. For the most part, I was too. I do you have any other things you want to talk about as far as likes before we get into the themes?
The chase sequences, man. When he steals the car from the government officials and he gets Jane and they take off, that first chase, and then the train sequence. My goodness, like, since I didn't know anything about the film, when they're trying to jump from the car to the train, I was like, Emily Blunt might die here. Like she truly might bite the dust here. I really don't know, because at that phase in the movie, you kind of think that Josh O'Connor's character is the main character of the film because he's the one that's been kind of the most focused on, and so I was like, is this kind of a Psycho thing where the most famous person in the film dies, at the midway point? So I was truly on the edge of my seat, not worried for her well-being. Is she gonna make it? So again, that was an awesome bit of filmmaking for me. So I love those chase sequences, the craft, how well they were shot, how well they were staged and set. Everything was just incredible. Love both those things.
I walked away with one theme that I think was important for me from this film, and there are other themes that were in there, but there was one for me that spoke more above everything else that I don't know that, and maybe you picked up on it. Maybe it's exactly what you were thinking about. And, when we get to talk about this now, but for me, I don't know that it's a thing that everybody would pick up on. And I thought it was really, really, really significant. So I've got one. Do you got some
Yeah.
themes you want to hit on?
Yeah, I got a couple of things that I think were what he was trying to say through the course of the film. And I thought it was more than just, I think aliens are real,
Yeah.
Um, the main one is the last word in the movie, which I led my 30-second review with. The main theme is listen to each other. Take time to hear what someone else has to say. Don't just assume what they're thinking or how they feel. Pause and listen. I don't think that listen that Emily Blunt's character said the last line of the movie was, listen, I'm about to tell you everything you need to know about aliens. It was more, hey, listen to each other. Just stop talking for a moment and listen and care about what someone else has to say, where they're coming from, what their opinion is, how they feel about something. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but listen. So to me, that was a huge film in a huge theme in the film.
Yeah. I don't think I would have said that at all. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, empathy is a huge part of this story, and it's something that the aliens,
and those are intertwined to me.
Yeah. And so that's not, I'm bringing that up because I think it is connected to what you're talking about. It's not at all where I would have gone with it as far as like what he was trying to say, but what we're supposed to walk away with, but the empathy portion of kind of how everything worked and how she knew things and would encourage things and speak truth and those kind of things, super powerful. Does change somebody when they feel like they're listened to and seen.
Yeah. And that's what Hugo, Coleman Domingo's character, was like. That's what these aliens have done. They're about empathy, and I think that was, to me, that was the central thing that he was trying to say about everything. Don't have empathy for one another. Listen, care.
That's not my take. That's not my main takeaway. It's interesting though. And I think that's a strong theme. Another theme that's, I think, ancillary for me, has to do with trauma. I think that, they spent some time, it's almost like a secondary kind of thing, but these two children were effectively, these two adult characters were effectively abducted as children in some capacity, like an alien experience, encounter, or whatever you want to call it. And how they kind of responded to it and how they felt in their adult life afterwards was there's a lot of trauma talk. There's a lot of trauma bonding. And there was also like the panic attack. I mean, that was probably a pretty dadgum good example of a panic attack and what happens and what it feels like and, how to work through it. And to take the time to do that in a 2 hour and 20-minute crisp film, I think is pretty interesting to think about what trauma does to a person.
Yeah. Having your childhood erased, that was something that both of them spoke about.
That's a mark of childhood trauma, is to not remember. There's people that typically have these dark spots in their memory from when they're kids. It's because of some trauma that occurred to them. And, the constantly wanting to move around, all the things that they kind of touched and hit on, like it was a very solid secondary theme. For me, if I were to say one of the major themes, if not the major theme for me for this film of Disclosure Day, has to do with the concept of control. Who is in control? Who's in control of the information? Are people able to handle information? And so if you don't, the very first question that Eve Hewson asks is basically if this idea of aliens gets out to the world, it's going to crumble the faith.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to keep it, not because it was true or false, but because she didn't want to harm others. And that in itself is a form of control. Colin Firth, he's trying to control it. The government is trying to control the news outlets and who they even let have the feed at the end of the film when they're talking about, do we want to give this is exclusive? Like it's control. And so like the film was basically in a way saying, let the truth out and let people decide what they will and let people respond how they will. And you don't have to, nobody gave you the right to be in charge of anything really. And bigger than that, God is big enough to handle whatever surprise were to happen, as far as we're concerned,
Yeah.
is in a way that it was, the usage of scripture and, God's creation on earth and stuff like that. Like there was some interesting things there. And so for me, the theme of control, who has it, who wants it, who's trying to get it, what's happening with it, who's trying, all the things
Yeah.
around it. That was for me, probably the most central theme that I walked away with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely um, a building block of the story, and it's interesting that the Wardex was the company that was in pursuit of the stolen files the whole time. Colin Firth's group, and it was made clear that this is not a government agency. It's basically an agency that is independent in and of itself, not too much unlike the Dead Rock Stars. But they basically have no accountability to anyone, and I think there's something to be said about that in terms of the theme of like, who's accountable to who with information, who has the right to information, who has the right to withhold information, so it's very much what you're saying, like who's in charge, who's in control of all those things. Absolutely a theme for sure.
Any other big themes you want to discuss before we move to kind of the religious theme?
No, I think that's the natural place where we're going in conversation. I'm curious, how did all that strike you?
Well, I've kind of tipped my hand a little bit. Like, I went to the folks that I went with, they didn't care for it. They didn't care for the religious stuff in there. They didn't really want it. And, a crucifix plays a part in it. The rosary beads is in there. There's moments where people portray acts of worship towards Emily Blunt.
Right.
There are things that happen in the film where it's like this interesting response when it comes to religion. And even Eve Hewson's kind of response talking to the nun, like is it going to be, is it going to be is this going to ruin the faith? Is this going to, those kind of things are really interesting to talk about. I did not like the Colin Firth, Eve Hewson Bible verse swap off. I'm not sure if that was scripture, some of it.
Yeah. What translation was that? I was kind of puzzled by that.
Okay. And that's an interesting thing to think about. Okay. A Hollywood writer knows the Bible. It's like facts and details are really important these days as far as what you do and what the realism of it all. But at the same time, it's like, we're going to make a Bible quote sound like a Bible quote because most people don't know the Bible anyway. And so it's going to be close enough that they're not going to care.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, this is a bit off track, but I remember Rocky Balboa, not the Creed, but the final like Rocky movie is called Rocky Balboa. He's got a guy quoting scripture before he goes out to fight in the end, and they quote this amazing verse about Jesus, and then the reference was like Zechariah 3:22 or whatever. I was like, no, dude, you got to do a little more work than that. The name Jesus in that context does not appear in the Old Testament.
Google did them wrong on that one.
Google did them wrong on that. I don't know, Google didn't really exist in that. I think it's 2006, but I thought it was interesting. I feel like sometimes people of faith react to anything that touches on faith or revolves around faith without first experiencing it or listening to it or sussing it out or like hearing what it actually has to say.
Yes. There's an aversion to the possibility that someone that's not a Christian might say something about Bible that's going to hurt their brain or like invade their thought process, and they're going to start thinking liberal thoughts or whatever. And so like,
it's a reaction. They react to it without ever having, understood. I think sometimes that's the case. Yeah. And so one of the things I told you that I did not see much, I was pretty blank slate coming in, but I did see a random Facebook post about, a religious group of some sort, I don't know, sort of writing or coming out against the films. I was like, oh shoot. And I after watching it, I was not in a place where I disapproved of how they used, religious faith. It was Catholic, and we're not Catholics, but, it was looking at it from a Catholic perspective. But I thought the nun's answer to if aliens are real, then God created them, like I really appreciated that, because I think that's how I'd approach it as well. if it turned out that aliens were real, like, well, God created them too. So, let's figure out what they're about.
I'd like to talk about this without getting any kind of emotional, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. The most significant part of the film to me that moved me and like broke me, wasn't really intended to do so, I don't think. But that conversation that he had with the nun, that Eve Houston had with the nun, where she was worried about control, what's going to happen if this gets out. And the nun responded by saying, I don't think you've lost your faith in God. I think you've lost your faith in people.
In people, yeah.
And that was incredibly impactful for me.
Yeah.
Difficult few years for me personally. And I think that is very much the case in my life. I have not really had a faith crisis, but I have had a faith in people crisis of sorts. Yeah. And so I can understand and appreciate that. And also just personally, I deal with control. Like for me, it's like my anxiety takes off, and the way I can help my anxiety is to kind of have an idea of everything that's happening. If you have an idea of everything that's happening, then you're in control. And, that's just not true. It's not real. We don't have control. And, but there were some really powerful moments that allowed you, even in the theater, to kind of respond to them in the midst of this crazy action-packed film. Yeah. That were just great. Yeah. And so like I didn't recoil from the religious themes. I don't know that they're perfect or great or right, or anybody should like write a book on the, the theology of Disclosure Day, like, the theology of God according to the Simpsons or whatever, like the books I used to write in the old days. But it didn't bother me, and I liked it.
I would really love to hear Spielberg's take on the Christian faith. Obviously he's Jewish. But if you watch The Fabelmans, when he moves to Arizona, the kids he hangs out with are all Christians. Like his first girlfriend there is a Christian, and like she's struggling with, the physical nature of their relationship because she's a Christian. I'm like, this dude had to have crossed paths with Christians in his day. And it appears as if, Last Crusade's a good example. Like he's not opposed. Like he's not anti-Christian faith. It seems, I obviously I can't read his mind or say what he really thinks. So I'd love to hear him speak on that, because it's never been portrayed. Yeah, I don't remember his films ever portraying Christians in a completely negative, intolerant light, and the fact that the nuns were a voice of reason and not intolerance, and not, the end is nigh posters, kind of thing. I was pretty impressed by that. I'm not going to, like you said, I'm not going to build my theology around Disclosure Day, but I'm glad that we weren't misrepresented. And I do believe you're absolutely right. A lot of people, they don't walk away from their faith. They walk away from the people who share that faith, and many times, and how those people have hurt them and wounded them, or those sort of things.
I think that it's very possible for institutions and organizations it can be very easily in your mind, you can begin to think that an institution loves you. And that's just not true. God loves you, people love you, but like institutions are institutions. They are organizations. They are, they're in the coldest, darkest sense of it. They can be a business, or they can be a truth teller, a keeper, or, certain standards, and even religiosity. And like in today's culture, government and politics can really get in there and poison some things. Yeah. And that really just doesn't have much to do with God.
Yeah. Old Tony Campolo. We are far afield, but one of my heroes in the faith, Tony Campolo, used to say that government and politics is like mixing ice cream and manure. The manure doesn't do a thing to the ice cream, but manure ruins the ice cream. Or the ice cream doesn't do a thing to the manure, but the manure ruins the ice cream.
So let's talk a little bit about the not likes.
So here's where the red ink comes out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's several things that I don't like. And I think, as I thought about this film, and you and I did this with Masters of the Universe, and we've done with the Breadwinner in our last episode, thinking about what would we do differently. Well, the thing that I would do differently, most of all, is I would not have started the movie at the wrestling match where he already had the files, and there was a bit of a getaway. It reminded me very much of Temple of Doom. The Temple of Doom starts with this exchange of diamonds and all that, and Indy gets poisoned, and it had a very similar kind of drop you right in the middle of the action opening. I would have started it with the heist when he's stealing the files.
That'd been good.
One of the things they're talking about is that all the people in Colin Domingo, Hugo, in his character, all those people were ex-employees of Wardox or Wardak or whatever it's called. and they had quit coming to work. They'd quit showing up, and they were startled by this because they were ready to disclose to the world after, Kellner stole the files that alien life is real. So I would have started with the theft. Show those people at their workstation. Show those people in that environment, and then have him steal it, have him escape, and then have, basically pick up in the dock scene after the wrestling matches.
It would have been really powerful to see a coordinated attack with those 12 people or 13 people and them all dissipating,
right?
And then not just being on Josh Connor, because like what he took and how he did it and all those things, like it wasn't just him, like and so like to show it a little bit more, you still don't have to have Coleman Domingo as a part of it. Like he doesn't have to be seen in any of that. You can kind of keep him mysterious, but those different people at the place kind of defecting and then nobody showing up at work the next day, that would have been cool.
Yeah. And I also would have shown maybe even the very first shot of the movie was, maybe Kellner waking up in the morning and he's having the gingerbread house scene, or the Hansel and Gretel house. That where they came to that at the end, the first time seeing that, you heard him describe it, but show him in a dream, or show Emily Blunt's character in a dream, seeing this house. And so when it comes back around at the end, it has a little bit more punch, versus hearing about it, having seen it again. And it kind of connects the tissue just a little more.
Something. I don't know if I'd do that, because it's possible that would spoil a little bit of the Emily Blunt in the hospital, Wyatt Russell breaking her confidence, telling her about the nightmares and the different things there. Like that would have more significance in that moment than it did when you watch it the first time. You see it for the first time and you're like, he's given, there's some kind of trauma she's experienced. We don't know what it is, but you're not putting all those pieces together so quickly. And that's some of it. It's like, it's interesting because it's a stew, right?
Yeah.
And, or it's a cake, or the stew's probably a better example. It's, you're watching the ingredients thrown in the pot, but you don't know what the stew is yet until you taste it at the end.
Yeah.
And so, you can nitpick it, but the wrestling didn't need to, I didn't make any sense. Like I didn't like it.
It would have been cool to start off with the heist at the first scene in the movie. That would have been super cool.
My rating comes out when the Spielberg-ism tropes kind of can take control of the movie a little bit.
And this is what we talked about. So this is definitely what we've already discussed together.
The faceless police with flashlights and guns that can't hit a dadgum thing and nobody dies. That are running in crowds and never look left or right. They're like, it's almost like they're video game bad guys, where they're not allowed to look around the corner.
Right.
It's like, it's like how many films have you watched from the 80s where they sneak away by just hiding down a hallway, and you're just like,
right.
There's 40 of them.
Right.
And like these guys, him getting away in the field, realizing they're all there when he walks up on it, and crouching the way he does, hiding behind a fence that isn't really a fence.
No.
There really isn't any underbrush. There's like, he didn't even lay down on the ground.
Yeah.
And then the way he's like walking around all goofy, it was like, what is happening? And for him to start the car up and to drive the car in the way he did, and nobody to respond to that when they're there trying to track somebody down, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that irked me as well, when he's in the field and just sort of crouches and gets behind. There's some like briars or thorns or something that's grown up, interwoven into the fence, but it wasn't a block in any way. And there were several, like the guy was like adjacent to, where if he just did this, he would have seen him. The field agent, he was like, oh, well, there he is.
How many times have we seen Harrison Ford or someone else grab a jacket, throw it on, and blend in?
Yeah.
Like, it would not have been hard for him to get to a trunk,
way.
Put on a thing, put on the helmet, pull up, it's just, that bothered me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel like Steven Spielberg, as much as he loves aliens, he wants to make them feeble. He won't create an athletic alien. Like, why won't Steven Spielberg create an athletic alien? Like when you think about aliens in general, how many athletic aliens have we seen? I mean, they're either marauding 8-legged monsters or whatever,
right,
that stumble around, or these feeble things that like have problems. They look like weird flamingos walking around because you want them to look cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like E.T. was so janky that it's fine. Like it's fine as an 80s film, but when the big reveal happens and he comes out as a senior citizen, it's half Silence of the Lambs, half senior citizen. You're like, what, why? And I mean, why couldn't a normal alien have walked out and like sat down and be like, "What's up, guys?" Like I know it's not as interesting, but for whatever reason, Spielberg, when he makes these aliens, like they are deliberately slow, and you're just like, "What?"
I think this is this is the point where he's like saying, this is what we believe has actually come to Earth. Aliens that look like this, the Roswell stuff, what's that, Section 49 or Area 56, the Area 56 stuff. Like this is
Area 51.
Area 51. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay.
This is what we believe the aliens that crashed here, what they look like. I think he's kind of stuck in that, and they look the same in Close Encounters, like the only aliens that were ever, could kick tail were the aliens in Men in Black,
and Predator.
And Predator, yes. And Predator. That's a good point.
Most athletic alien, Predator. I don't know if we should have that contest, but I'd say he's up there.
They are definitely up there. The one that the tripod or whatever they called him, Tommy Lee Jones told Will Smith, like, you track down a tripod on foot. You're like, man, that's good. Anyway, cephalopod or something. I can't remember what he called him, but so that's a good point. The aliens are often very clumsy, goofy looking green. And that was one of my nitpicks. I was like, Steven, my friend, my, greatest director to ever draw breath on the earth, probably, make a practical alien, get someone in a suit. Grogu is so much better because he's practical and not CGI.
Yeah. The CGI in the film, in everything but the ending alien, the broadcasts were phenomenal. I love those. Everything else in the story, CGI wise, was horrific.
Yeah,
like it was bad. The animals were bad. Like those things kind of could pull you out of it pretty quickly. The fox was the one that bothered me the most. I think
looked AI.
It just didn't look like it was.
Yeah,
like it was real in any way. And maybe that was an on purpose artistic choice.
Could be.
They're not real. They're not real animals. They're a vision that the aliens wanted you to see when they look at you.
Right.
And so maybe that's why they looked the way they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little nitpicky because it didn't ruin it, but it just wasn't up to snuff.
Here's another huge nitpick I have. Okay. Talk about underdeveloped plots. What the heck is going on with the World War III stuff? At one point they go to a gas station and people are like looting the store. They're taking everything out of the gas station. And then at other points, people are just going about their lives, like they roll up to the TV station at the end and like, there's not mass hysteria. People are still at their jobs doing, so it's like, so is the world actually ending from World War III as the people at earlier in the film were reacting, or what is going on? There's a Korean man explaining the global thing in the Kansas City, Missouri, newsroom. So is it really that bad? And I just felt that was really underdeveloped. The whole World War III angle. I know why it was part of the film. I just hate that it was, completely not told in a way that made it more clear.
It had to be on the chopping block. It had to be in the editing room floor. Like there has to be clips that make that more of a thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I mean, I can understand the choices that were made. How about this? How did Coleman Domingo know to make the childhood home exactly like Emily Blunt's when a day before Emily Blunt didn't exhibit any of the things that she had? Like, I mean, how did he know who she was and what she was when they didn't know who she was when she started clicking and talking on the screen, at the beginning of the movie, like she was a non-entity, a non-whatever, but yet they made her house perfectly. And like, that didn't make sense to me. Like, on one end, them making a house that couldn't be tracked, Like, I thought that was a brilliant idea. Like, they were inventing a place that no one could walk into it, and nobody could be dove in on and find out where that place is, because there was no, I thought that's where we were going with that. Or they were making a television, channel to be able to broadcast to the world or whatever. Like, all that was, I had other ways I thought that was going to go, but when it was her childhood home, that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me, really. The MacGuffin made no sense to me, and it's fine. We didn't have to, we didn't have to have it explained. But when you tell a story and the story turn is answered by a MacGuffin that you don't explain, and then it does one thing, and then it does another thing, and then it does more things, and then the answer to that is, well, you just don't know all the things it can do.
Right.
It's a pretty nice plot device to have.
That didn't bug me. Typically that would. In a Star Wars film, that would totally bug me, but it didn't bug me, because I think they were leaning into the awe and wonder of what these beings are capable of, and I think you just have to take it on faith.
I can be okay with that, but let's talk about this for a second. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is a big major plot point. The way it gets operated is how?
You hold it tight.
Okay. So Josh O'Connor is able to get away at the beginning of the film because he's got it in his hand, but they don't want him to squeeze it. And so the reason they don't shoot him is he might squeeze it. So it's the opposite of a fail-safe trigger. When you're a bomber, you hold the trigger down.
Right.
And if somebody shoots you, you die. You let go, it explodes. But there were 30 people around him with guns. He had the thing they were looking for. The MacGuffin gets dropped later in the film several times. They could have, in the first 5 minutes of this film, ended the whole movie by just shooting him in the head, and it's over.
I think what they were trying to show at that phase in the movie is that even though this, they had been in possession of this, they didn't know what all it could do. And so they were afraid of what it could possibly do. He didn't know at that stage in the game that he is one of those who's been unlocked to use it, so he could hold it. He could do whatever he wants with it because of his alien visitation. When he's a child, he didn't know that of his ability to wield it, I suppose. So that didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that they didn't want to just blow his brains out right there, because they were afraid of what would happen, if he held the thing too tight. All they've seen is Colin Firth's character use it, and it about kill him a couple of times, so there's a whole lot of fear of
that
the
true?
Unknown. Well, that's what he said. He said, in their interaction, he was talking with him, and he said, I've watched the video. I've seen what this did to you. Or he said, did you see what this did to me? And he's like, yes, I've watched the video, so they knew some of what it could do, but they didn't know all of what it could do. So I think that was the fear. Don't touch it. It could kill us all.
At one moment, a guy grabs it and disappears, goes somewhere, and then comes back unconscious.
Yeah.
And
that part
bounces on the floor, right? So more than likely, the way Colin Firth responded to that is, it's not the first or the last time, he's seen that. So again, just shoot the guy in the head.
Yeah.
The thing hits the ground and bounces, you pick it up, and the story's over.
At some point, you got to suspend your disbelief. It's a movie about aliens, Jay.
I love that I finally got you to just go shrug. That's my favorite thing about what just happened today. Because you are not a shrugger, but I just got it to happen.
Typically not. But you know what I think? The reason why is because I have no relationship to this film. It was the first, when I saw it on Tuesday night, was the first time and the only time I've ever seen it. And so I was so in the moment, and I had no idea what was coming around every bend, around every turn. Yeah. I didn't know it was so I could be present with that film in a way that I can't be in a Star Wars movie, in a way that I can't be in a Marvel movie, because I know too much. We know too much. We have too much history. We have too much connective tissue in our lives, in our backstories, and all these things, the things that matter. This was just fresh, and it hit me in the best way possible.
So let me ask the question. We've I can get nitpicky, right? Whatever.
Sure, we all.
I honestly gave it 4 out of 5 stars. You gave it 5 out of 5, and so this is my Superman moment for you. You got to pick apart Superman. I get to do this to you, so it's fun. But the question is, should people go see this?
I think so. I think it is worth seeing, to see a master still at the peak of his powers. You know, would this movie go into my top 5 for Steven Spielberg? Probably not. It's probably not going to have the legs that those other 5 movies and how they've impacted me, how much I love them, how rewatchable they are. But I'll tell you this, I can't wait to see it again. I'm looking forward to going back, and I'm looking forward to taking my 2 sons.
Yeah.
Because it was a powerful. I'm not talking about the themes. I'm not talking about the religiosity, any of that stuff. I'm talking about just being in the movie theater and seeing a great film that moves you, that makes you go, wow, because of the filmmaking, the craft of it all. I absolutely, people should go see it to see Steven Spielberg still throwing his fastball. That's what I say.
Yes, I agree. I love the fact that you can watch a fun movie, be entertained, be amazed, and then after it's over with, have lots of conversations about the themes and where it goes.
Yeah.
Like that's like, I don't know, like, is there a better reason for art than to be able to create something that's going to cause conversation and like discussion and like actual thinking?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's a trick. It's a trick to be able to do a crowd pleaser, something that's not too scary, you know, so the kids can watch it, but then be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
So definitely go see it. Are you going to go see it again in the theater?
I would like to. Yes, I would like to. Yeah. Regal Unlimited, baby.
Well, forget that. Like just going and like did you take your kids? Was it just you?
No, it's just me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I could sit there for 5 minutes after the movie and just,
yeah.
I did not cry. I did not get emotional, but I was just letting it wash over me. I was like,
yeah,
this is what I've needed in a movie theater for a long, long time. Just something that made me go, you know, I'm so glad this movie was made. It was just a great film.
I hope it does well. I haven't looked at the box office. I don't know how it's doing. I noticed that as far as Rotten Tomatoes goes, like it, you know, the critics liked it more than the audience do, but I hope it grows in that. I hope more people go see it. I hope it's a slow burner and that it stays in the theater a little bit longer, because I think you need to see this on a big screen.
I do too. You know, it's one of those things. I think it, you know, this is something that the kids like to say, but it very much has a boomer's perspective on life.
Yeah.
You know, that the nightly news could cause the world to come to a halt. You know, like, sorry, you know, I don't think that's how it works anymore.
Who even is who's the Walter Cronkite of our generation? Who is it?
I mean, I don't know. You may would think someone, you know, like, honestly, like Jon Stewart.
That's what I was going to say.
Anderson
That's
Cooper,
what I was going to say.
like,
think about it. Like, Jon Stewart's not even on a, you know, broadcast television show. He's not going to be reporting news live, but like, that's who, like, it's wild to think about that. Like, it's not, you know, it's not anybody that we even probably know right now.
I couldn't even tell you, you know, I could tell you Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, and, Kenneth Koppel, was that his name? The ABC lead?
Ted Koppel.
Yeah. Yeah, I could tell you those guys from my childhood, but I can't tell you who anchors the desk, you know, on the news anymore. Of the big 3 networks. So yeah, it's definitely a different day and age. And the nightly news probably would not bring the world to a screeching halt and end World War III effectively. The one thing I would add, one more thing, I think it would have been better if the end was not, he didn't do this because it'd be too much like Close Encounters, but if the end was not, here's all the video footage that you know, proves the existence of aliens. And I know they brought an alien out in his wheelchair and his Hannibal Lecter thing, but if a craft landed on camera and an alien walked out, you know, E.T. style there at the end, I think that would have been a more effective ending that could have potentially rocked the world and brought the world's attention all at once. If they're like, there is an alien craft landing right now live, and here it's happening, versus here's all these videos that may or may not be real. I know they had one throwaway line about like, it's verified, AI verified, or something like that, you know, just to give it that bit of authenticity.
Truthy.
But
truthy.
Yeah, truthy. But yeah, so no, I think that's the beginning and the end are the 2 things that I would tweak the most.
I would just say go see it, draw your own conclusions. It's worth
Yes.
it's worth the experience and worth the conversation.
Absolutely.
And with that, Kyle, thank you for this conversation. It's been a delight and joy.
Thank you.
And had a great time. And what's up next for us?
We had talked about Toy Story. I'm probably going to go see that on Sunday with the kids on Father's Day. We talked about Supergirl, so we may need to do another double episode, cram a few together.
Okay.
2 for the price of 1.
Well, I'm down and I'm excited for the next one. And with that, You have any parting words?
Listen.
Listen.